Hey everyone, this is Dan, the GM, bringing you episode 150. Except this 150 is a bonus episode. That's right, a bonus episode, released just after the normal episode. Something special, something to give you, well, you'll find out. So, if you are new to What the Dice, why are you starting here? Go back to episode 1. It's a good episode. It's where we start this mayhem that we call What the Dice. Well, I'm going to shut up and let you get on with this week's episode. It's a special one, because it is an extra episode, because 2 released of them today. I'm going to shut up. I'm going to let you get on with this episode. Sit back, relax, and enjoy episode 150, the bonus episode. As we go to exit the storyteller's campsite, he begins to run his thumb across the pages. As the pages flick and move slowly through the air, he smiles.
Well, before you go, I'm sure a extra story might entice you to stay but a moment longer. I'm sure you are curious on what Klide Holdkeep has been up to. Well, my friends, how about you have a seat and let us talk of what Holdkeep has been getting up to.
So, Clyde, it is been a couple of months since you have been stationed at the Holdkeep border. You've been given a fairly large group of men to work with. Well, men and women, paladins. You've been given a couple of field promotions. You are now a captain in this group. And it has been... Actually, let's get a roll. Give me a intelligence roll to see how well you have been leading this group of army, unless you have like military tactics as a skill.
I do not. I have the nature and religion.
Okay, so let's do a straight intelligence roll.
Okie dokie. I have a 4.
Okay, so you are learning things the hard way. You have made your fair of mistakes, but for the most part, you're not really losing men. You know the better part of valor is sometimes you have to retreat.
I'm very charismatic, if that helps.
You are charismatic, so the morale of the people that you're helping isn't low. You've now fortified this old abandoned fort, and this fort was forgotten, kind of up the road a little bit, probably what used to be Holdkeep original, until they moved closer to the ocean for trade purposes, as well as easier to protect, because then you have ocean on one side. As you make your way to probably what would be like your, I don't want to call it your office, but your area where you are able to get away to read orders and things like that. One of the things that you have walked across are old scryings in the stone from the original 3 heroes of Holdkeep. And with that, when
We 3 heroes of Holdkeep are.
the names have gotten forgotten by time, and it's one of those like the names have been faded away. People don't speak of them because it has been a long time since it's happened. There were actually 4 heroes, but everyone only really remembers the 3. And there were two names for this skirmish that gave Hold's Keep kind of its claim to fame. There was the most common day is the Day of Light, where the evil king that was trying to take hold and take over was defeated. He was an old black orc. And then the other name that some call it was the Day of Blood because of the sacrifice the heroes had to use. Which name does Klide know that battle by?
I would say most likely, the Day of Blood, just because of his family history. We're not in the, we're in the battle. That's how they were granted partial of the, place where they live now, the keep. So that the Day of Light probably name didn't come across until later.
Okay. So his family was probably leaning more towards like the true nature and the sacrifice that the heroes had to give to actually to defeat this old king.
Yeah, I would say that just because of the honor bound of my history. How we were granted was ancestor held the keep, so it was very honor bound and saved a lot of people. So they probably remember it as the sacrifice of the heroes.
Okay. So you're sitting in your office. It is probably just after supper. You've had your meal with your troops. A couple of the mercenary groups that have been hired have come in, set up their tents or set up in the bunks themselves to help with the pushback. There's been rumor that there's another insurgent of Bone God army coming your way. I need a perception check.
Okay. I would say I would have something that's already kind of active if it's the evening.
Yeah.
And
what would you have active?
That's the Eagle Soul. It's 1 hour per level, so it'd be like 18 hours.
Mm-hmm.
And without shortening it, that's what gives me +2 to morale bonus, +2 to all perception checks, and +2 for initiative checks.
All right, perfect. Then you'll definitely want that +2.
Perfect.
So let's get that perception check real quick.
Okay, sorry.
You're good.
27 +2, 29.
With a 29, you are reading through your orders, and something doesn't look right. Normally, these seals are pretty immaculate, but you notice that the most recent seal looks resealed. Looks like the wax seal had been broken and then, with skill, remelted and kind of set back in place. But there's that. You've broken enough of these seals that you know that feeling, that tension that that particular wax has. And as you look over the note, it's the right handwriting. The orders seem to be correct, but there's something that's nagging at you. These are confidential orders delivered to you by courier, and it was handed to you by a courier, but something's, again, not right when you break the wax seal.
I'll call the officer that's outside the tent.
The officer peeks his head in. Yes, sir.
The courier that dropped off the papers today, is he a regular, or was it a shift change that we did not regularly have?
He thinks for a moment. He goes, I believe it was one of the regular couriers, sir. A young elven boy. I can see if he is still on site. I don't believe he has gathered up all the letters from the peoples to take back home.
Please do, and have him report to me.
Yes, sir. You hear a quick conversation as a different guard takes his post as he walks off. As you wait, you hear something walking around in the backside of your tent. It is a heavy but skilled step of almost quietness.
Um, as you know, always the shield is near me, but I will pick up, I will maneuver the shield slowly. That way, it's leaning up against my leg, so it can be easily accessible to put my arm through.
Hmm.
But I will now listen with intent.
You, the movement stops for a moment as you hear a guard patrol move past. As the guard captain steps in with the young elven boy, the elven boy bows. Yes, Captain, you requested to see me?
Yes. Oh, and officer, I have a new order, for you, real quick.
Yes.
That will go out with his paperwork after we're done. So I'll hand it to him after I have the conversations.
Yes, sir.
And I'm going to scribble down someone behind my tent and fold it and hand it to him.
He reads it and he goes, Absolutely, sir. I'll make sure that the mess hall has this particular bread ready for us in the morning.
Perfect, because I know the boy here, Elvish has a little bit of a better taste. So,
Yes, of course. He exits and the boy stands there kind of confused of what's going on.
um, I will tell him, "Oh, please have a seat for a moment. Can I offer you any refreshments?"
No, sir. I've just finished my meal and was just gathering up the last of the letters. He lightly pats his satchel.
Because it doesn't cost me anything, I'm gonna do detect evil just to see if anything is lingering.
As you look over the boy, he is the same courier you've always seen. You see no tinge of darkness. You don't even see the normal corruption that any of the Bone God's armies has. This boy definitely travels between here, Hold's Keep, and the Holy City quite frequently. Around his neck does adorn one of the gods of the light spectrum as a symbol of protection.
Okay. Um, After that, I'm just gonna have him sit down, and I'm gonna take a seat, and I'm going to, unfortunately for him, I'm going to have a very awkward silence for a few moments to see what happens behind me in the tent.
The boy sits and is getting that fidgety, kind of like a boy in the principal's office, as you hear those heavy footprints disappear into the night as you hear the sound of guards chasing after it.
Okay. Um. Now I know you do your job very well, but I do have a question. Do you remember where this particular orders came from? If not, that's okay. I'm just inquiring.
He looks at the letter and nods. He goes, That was handed to me by Master Nicodemus to take to Hold's Keep to then bring directly here. And that letter was to not leave the satchel until I got here.
Okay, and I'm guessing that was true. It did not leave the satchel.
No, as far as I am aware, it didn't leave my satchel. It is a 2-day run, so I did have to stay, but I did sleep with the satchel on my under my back so that no one would, if it was disturbed, it would, you know, uh, wake me up.
Okay, very good. Um, Now, when you got this from Master Nicodemus, and he said this to you, was he in a rush, or is he kind of his usual self? I'm sure you've dealt him with him before.
As far as I could tell, he was issuing the orders as normal. The letters, by the time I get there, are usually there and sealed, and then he hands them to me.
Okay. I appreciate your time. I'm gonna give him a gold coin for his time.
Thank you, sir.
Of course.
He waits for you to officially dismiss him.
And I'm just gonna wait a few more moments.
The guard captain, or the guard officer, pops his head in and he goes,
Exactly.
the bread has been ordered, sir. It will unfortunately not be able to be here until late tomorrow.
Well, sir, I appreciate it. Now that you're back, this young man is dismissed, and you may escort him out to the rest of his gathering of the letters.
Yes, sir. He escorts the boy out, and the night ticks on. It is probably about midnight. What time would Klide end up crawling into bed?
Um, Probably around 10:30, 11, because technically, kind of spellcaster needs like a long quote unquote rest to get the spells and everything like that.
Okay. It's midnight. The fort is fairly quiet, besides the sound of footsteps as guards make their passes. And you feel something poking you from the side of your tent. Just this push, like a stick, like if when sound like a kid trying to poke a dead body with a stick, that kind of feeling, but it is through your tent wall.
And I will open my eyes and say, and not without moving, and say, "Your presence is known. What do you need?"
And you hear a female voice. It is a little gruffer than anyone that you recognize. Give me an intelligence check.
17.
With a 17, you kind of listen, and they're speaking in Orc, and it's a slang in it that you haven't heard for a long while. And you hear, Klide, are you awake?
I am fully awake now.
There's a moment as a female orc pops her head in from the tent flap. You recognize her. You haven't seen her since your days of a fighter.
Well, welcome. I have not seen you since. What? Put the dent in my shield?
She smiles. She goes, well, looks like it did you some good, knocked some sense into you, and now look at you. Fancy paladin leading a small army against, well, my brethren, but that's not why I'm here. Come on, get up.
Do I need to don?
I would at least grab a weapon just in case. We're not leaving camp.
Okay. I'll put gauntlets, shield, boots, and sword. I'm not gonna don my full plate, but enough that if I need to deflect something with a fist or kick something, it's gonna hurt.
Right. She walks you to where it's a little bit darker, less guard patrols. So, I got some orders today that didn't seem right.
Me as well.
I think something is going on. I think there's a spy somewhere. I asked about the wax seal and everyone thinks I'm crazy.
You are not alone in that aspect, and unfortunately, it is a very good spy. The courier is one of our regulars, and he's delivered enough orders to know exactly how to do it. And he's put the satchel underneath him when he sleeps. So someone's either magically inclined to keep him still asleep, or alchemically inclined to keep him asleep.
She nods. So, I've been doing a little snooping, and I think that you might be right. I know I'm not a fancy paladin, and I'm just a fighter, but I know when my gut says something, and I know that orcs have got some pretty tricky tricks up their sleeves nowadays, especially these weird corrupted ones we've been dealing with. I'm thinking that we need to send out some false orders back. Maybe say that, we need less troops, or maybe we need more troops, or something to tip off or set up a trap for this spy. And I know this espionage is not our thing. This lying, we're not rogues, but we got to come up with something. My guys we're getting just garbage steel. I've put in requests for the good steel weapons, and we're getting. She pulls out a sword and is able to bend it. This stuff is garbage. This is stuff you would train with when you're in a squire ranking.
I wonder if we've had any mishaps with any equipment that has been delivered.
Well, it looks like the paladins are getting equipment from the paladin order. We're getting it from just, I don't know where it's coming from.
I wonder if we can send out orders to divert some of your shipments here. So, that's a very good question. But I agree that we need to start doing something. We need to send out some sort of false orders or false directions about what we will be doing.
She nods and she's like, well, I'll do what I can in my encampment. My guys are able to move a little bit more quickly. We don't have to organize like your guys. And no offense, but these plate armor things, they're great in combat, but getting through the woods, you guys are no good.
Well, I'm wondering if we can set up a kind of ambush. How quickly would you be able to dig some trenches and cover them?
He thinks for a moment. She's like, meh. Maybe, well, depending on how deep you want to go, you want something to stop an orc, I'll need 2-3 hours. You want something that's going to stop a dwarf or a halfling, give me 30 minutes.
No, I'm thinking about sending out orders of, we had to move quickly, our excess equipment is stashed here, in wherever location you are, and then digging small trenches for a select elite group to hide in, so that when somebody comes, or the first people to come, we would be able to ambush them.
He thinks for a moment. She's like, okay. Now we're cooking with something.
Along the lines of some of the equipment was given to us by the order to help us out, but it was a little bit heavy, could not be inspected fast enough, so it is stationed here under this area.
She pulls out a map and does a quick pencil trace out. She goes, okay, what if we go about a mile or two north of here? There's a pretty dense section of trees that's easy to hide things in. I think a couple smugglers used to use that area. At least that's what some of the other fighters have been telling me.
That sounds like a good idea. I'll take only probably 2 of my order because we are in plate, and we will need to hide before you kind of start, so
Yeah.
we can be more entrenched, I guess you could say, because we're a little bit harder to move around afterwards.
She nods. Yeah. Okay. I will I'll get up there, get my men moved up there, and I'll see you up there. Give us an hour to get at least started. We'll wrap up some, like, I don't know, maybe some wooden sticks or something, make it look like some armor and some weapons are carefully wrapped or something. We'll figure something out.
Put some of the swords and stuff, just wrap them in leather so they can't see exactly what it is.
Oh, yeah, we could do that. All right. She clasps your shoulder. She's like, well, Master Roy said you had something in you. Glad to see you kind of came out of your shell and then put on a new one.
One that helps protect me from the darkness at bay.
She nods. As she wraps up the map, she disappears into the darkness. Almost in that, like, cutting into a tree, and then you just hear the rustle of bushes as she's disappearing.
Okay. I will take the time to don all of my armor, because that takes a significant amount of time.
Mm-hmm.
And within that time, I'll think of 2 people that are good to bring along. One that has more ranged capability, and one that has more like, this is where I stand, and nobody's going to move me from this point.
Something like a phalanx.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. All right, that's easy enough to get. You've got a couple of these guys.
If it's dense forest, he can. Yeah, that would be. I'm going to stand here, and you're not going to get by me because there's trees everywhere.
Yeah.
And I'm going to. Yeah, that kind of thing.
Absolutely. So you find these guys easy enough. People that have fought by your side for the couple of months. As you are finishing up and you walk through to head out, you find this old abandoned section of the fort. Your people have been using it kind of as an area just to store dried goods, put down new flooring, and put in some rudimentary shelves just to keep it off the floor. As you pass by, you get this chill as you can see something has been scrawled into the stone.
If it gives me chill, I'm going to turn and do detect evil. See if it gives me off any type of.
As you look at it, you know the difference between evil and the necessary evil of the world. Rogues and things of that nature that are necessary, gods that are required. They're not these corrupted evil that you've noticed. This evil is ancient, and the energy on it is faded, so it is an old scrying. And as you kind of stare at it, you realize that there's coordinates that match the area that you're going. And it says something about a weeping willow in old common, kind of like how there's old English and modern English. It's in that old common, but you recognize it because you're a learned person. So it's this old term for the weeping willow. And there's no real other information about it.
Okay. I will take note of the willow. Can I do knowledge religion to see if there's a way for me to interrupt the what's written there, that it doesn't really make sense, so the evil feeling of it would just dissipate?
Yeah, you can. Go ahead and roll knowledge. We'll call it knowledge religion.
Yeah, 19.
With a 19, you pull out your holy book, flip through a couple, and you find a couple of incantations that are very quietly semantic, like more of a mumbled whisper. As you kind of do this mumble whisper thing, the dark energy that is on it, that is ancient and old, begins to just wisp away very easily, kind of like just wiping dust off of an own tome. And you begin to study it, and you start to see that there's a little bit more written. There's something about, meet me here, and you see a name, but you can't really make it out. It starts with a K. This could just be anything, just residual evil from the last orcs that came through, that almost got through. The scrying is not fresh. It looks like it might be back in the old war.
Okay, starts with a K. I'll try to remember that as we go out to the willow.
As you finally get to where this ambush will be set up, you notice that the fighters that are here have already dug the trenches, set them up, and your orc friend walks up. Okay, so we've set you up a couple of areas that you can hide in. Just try not to move around too much so your armor doesn't give you away.
That shouldn't be a problem. We are kind of well versed in standing at posts for very extended periods of time.
He kind of chuckles at that and helps get everyone kind of where they need to be.
I will make note in my view of looking where this willow possibly might be.
As you kind of look around, in the center of this ring of trees, you do see this ancient willow. You can see just the scars of young lovers that have scored their name into the bark. And it's the only willow in the area.
Any portion of it giving off bad vibes?
There's that strange ancient evil that you saw from the weird scrying that seems to be very small by the base of the tree, possibly covered up by something, but it's very, very weak. It would be easily looked over as maybe a drop of a small vial of blood that was dropped, or things of that nature.
Okay. I'm going to do that small prayer again, because I don't want any even small tic-tac size taint in this area.
Doing that quick prayer, you watch as that evilness just kind of mists away, fading away. It's now about 1:30 a.m. You stand with your team in silence. 2 o'clock, 2:30, 3 o'clock. As it starts to get closer to that 3:30 mark, you see something moving in the shadows. Something is moving through the underbrush carefully. Give me a perception check.
Ooh. 28.
With a 28, you see a high elf. They're adorned in leather armor, and they have covered their face and ears in this black soot to make them kind of look like a drow. Their normal golden hair has clearly been dipped in some kind of lacquer or tar to darken it, but it doesn't look natural. They are moving quietly and quickly, moving towards where the weapon stock is being held.
Perfect. I make no moves. I'm waiting until they get closer.
They stop as they kind of look around. They pull their hood back and inch closer. Eventually you see them start to move the brush and debris out of the way as they start to reach into the hole.
Oh, okay. So when they would be bending over to reach in the hole, that's when I would give the signal to come out. If because that that movement kind of puts them off balance, in my opinion.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely. As you give the hand signal, the archer takes a quick shot kind of behind them to make them jump
Perfect.
forward.
Yes.
As they tip forward, they kind of scramble as the orc grabs them by the hood and yanks them back even further, sending them kind of sprawling until they hit the ground. As they land, you're able to get into position. What would you like to do?
I would like to tie them up.
That's easy enough. They are completely kind of stunned that what just happened, because a lot happened in a very short amount of time. So you were able to tie them up, and you were looking at the face of a high elf. You can tell by the eyes, there's that telltale signs of that golden color that every high elf has. Leaning in close, you can see the soot that they had coated their face and ears in has, with sweat wiped away, revealing their tan skin. And of course, elven hair does not stick back like this, not without tar and lacquer holding it in place. They look at you and seem surprised and angry at the same time.
This isn't something that I know, but I'm going to ask if anybody has something that can lower a person's will by chance.
The orc just leans in and whispers something in the elf's ear and then cracks her knuckles. You can see that the surprise has now changed to fear.
Oh, good. Right when that happens, I'm going to cast Zone of Truth.
Okay, let me roll. I have a 10.
No. That is
All right.
definitely not. Basically, you cannot lie.
Okay.
At all. What is your true name?
She looks at you and gritting her teeth, clearly trying to fight the magic, she is unable to. She says that her birth name is Adaris, but her master calls her the shadow of summer.
Are you able to speak your master's name without consequences happening?
She kind of slowly nods as she is clearly trying to fight this zone of truth, but is completely unable to.
All right, who is your master?
Without really giving a moment to even hesitate because of everything that's going on, King Leoris Sylvan is my master, and he will take this land from you foul humans.
So the king of the elves in the area is after my land.
It was rightfully ours.
Before the war?
This whole time. All the land belongs to the elves. You others are nothing but beasts that have gone past what they should have. The elves should be ruling this land, not you beasts.
Have you or someone you know been tampering with our orders?
She grits her teeth and tries to shake her head no, but there's that yes.
Perfect. So we are going to search you now, just so you are aware. Is there anything on you that when somebody would take, search, or tamper with would do harm?
She looks down at her hip, and you can see that there's a dagger that has been positioned to where if you were searching without really paying attention, you would probably cut your hand on the back edge of the blade, where you see a strange ichor-like substance that has stained the silver blade.
Perfect. Thank you very much. What does the poison do?
It is the blood of King Leoris. It will force you to serve him as a slave that you should be.
Oh, wonderful. That's very nice to hear. I'm going to remove the blade very carefully so nobody gets cut on it. And I'm going to clean it. Making sure that there was nothing happening.
As you clean it, you easily are able to find a small hidden cylinder that's actually producing the blood, and you are able to, seal it up, clean it off, make it to where it is not a threat to you or anyone else.
Perfect. And given who I am, I'm going to have the female orc search her.
There's a quick couple of minute pat down. Let me do a quick roll. Okay. As the female orc pulls a small backpack from behind her cloak that is filled with copies of the orders. You see an alchemical set that is labeled with the chemicals and instructions on how to make a very potent sleeping agent, as well as you find a couple of copies of maps that indicate troop movement and things of that nature. It looks like she has been at least recording the last handful of messages back and forth between you and the Holy City.
Great. My next question is going to be, what's the last thing that you informed about our troop movement and encampment and military endeavors?
He thinks for a moment, and the last thing I reported was that you were running low on rice and beings, and that you needed another group of fighters to come. And that was before this, she head nods towards the orc, traitor arrived.
Perfect. To the captain or whoever's with me, make note: any new rice or bean shipments coming in for the next week need to be double tested for any poison or contaminants.
The archer makes a jot down.
Next, we will move on to your troop movement, and my friend right here has a lovely map, and you can indicate where you are and how many are there.
She looks at the map and she goes, the main force is here, head nodding towards where you once fought Argaroth the Roggaroth. That is where we're coming from. But I report and do dead drops. She head nods towards a clearing that is just to the northwest, closer to what would be an old abandoned trading settlement that has been long burned down, destroyed by highwaymen and bandits and things of that nature.
Well, thank you for the information. I still do have more questions. What do you need to do to have your superiors know that you still are well and active?
She glares at you, biting down on her tongue. She finally speaks up. I have to report every 2 days. I have to do a dead drop. If there's not, they're going to determine that I have been either killed or captured.
Perfect. Within your letters, what are some notations that you would try and have them interpret? You know, like you were in trouble, or you needed help, or you were going to take more time, that kind of thing.
He looks at you and starts to laugh. You think they care? As far as they're concerned, me being captured or dead is just another pawn. If I'm not here, I'm just a meal.
Oh, okay. So you don't have any undetermined notation to let them know that, something is going on that you wouldn't want somebody else to read.
No.
Perfect. And how many are in your encampment?
It is just me.
Okay, and how many are in the main encampment?
Right now, the main force is about 250 strong, but I am the only scout. The other scout that they sent out was killed by the head nods at the archer.
Oh, perfect. Good shot. Do they all carry blades like this?
He nods.
Okay, well, that's something to definitely be wary about. All right, so, officer, make another note. As much range combat as possible. Do not let them touch you with a small knife, and if they do, whoever can, make note of it, and in all honesty, try and slash one of your hamstrings. Or, one of your Achilles. It can be healed later.
He looks at you for a moment and then shrugs and nods and then writes it down.
This blood poisoning that you have on there, is there a specific cure to it, or is it something that the king has to do?
He just starts laughing. Why would we cure something that binds a slave to their master?
because there is something called an over-enthusiastic obsession.
Those make the best meals, according to the king.
Oh, so he eats them?
She just smiles. That sick and twisted smile.
How many does he eat a day?
She shrugs lightly. I know that he has 3 meals a day, and I was told that I would make a good lunch or dinner.
Oh, you must eat pretty light. You're not really that big for a dinner.
She just glares at you.
What is the best way to get into your encampment?
He shrugs slightly. I don't know. I was sent out before the main troop arrived. I've been amongst your ranks for a few days.
Okay. What have you learned currently that you have not told them yet, or were planning to tell them on the next drop?
She looks at her bag. It's a dead drop. I have the papers, and I leave them there.
Okay. Commander, any other questions that you might be able to think of?
The commander thinks for a moment, and he's just, well, knowing where they put the dead drop would be good.
Isn't that in that clearing?
It's in a old abandoned city, so there's abandoned town, so there's probably a couple of places that you could stow it.
Perfect. Okay. Yes. Where is the dead drop located, and what is the procedure of doing the dead drop?
She smiles. She goes, "It's in the temple, underneath the priest's pulpit. There'll be a black box with a key. The key is around my neck."
Wunderbar. Perfect. Thank you very much. I'm going to ask the work if she has any other questions that she might be able to think of.
She shakes her head no.
Oh, here's a question. That blood, does it work on arrows?
No, it doesn't. We tried, and it doesn't. It dries too quickly.
Okay, perfect. All right, bring her along. Let us go back to the encampment. That way she can be sent back to the order and possibly more properly interrogated.
The orc picks the elf up by the scruff of her shirt and begins to push her forward towards the encampment. As she walks up to you, or as the orc kind of like walks up close to you, she kind of elbows you in the side. She's like, "Yeah, look at that, look at that. Looks like you caught your first prisoner."
Maybe in this endeavor, first, but probably not my last.
No, probably not. As you all get to the encampment and the fort, she smiles. "Well, I gotta head out. Looks like you caught yourself a little spy. Hopefully that'll help with what's going on."
Well, be safe, my friend, and we shall continue doing what we can for this endeavor. I will keep you updated with any other information I might find out or get.
She gives you a nod. She goes, "Oh, don't worry. I keep my ear to the ground." As she goes to leave, she stops as she looks at one of your inkwells that has run dry. "Can I keep that? It's got the Paladin Order emblem on it."
I don't see why not.
She picks it up, kind of bounces it in her hand, catches it, and nods. She goes, "I've kind of started collecting things. It's kind of a fun hobby."
Don't let it get too far.
"No, of course. Always ask, and if they say no, offer to purchase it. If it's a no, move on.
Perfect.
She gives you a head nod. As she walks past you, she clasps your shoulder. You turned out a lot better than anyone ever expected. Glad you held up to your potential.
Thank you for the praise.
As she walks off, you can hear the prisoner being properly shackled off in the distance and thrown into a cast iron jail. And that is where we end this episode.
Well, well, well. It seems as if Klide has been dealing with something a little harder than just your average wall. It seems as if Leoris has decided to try to enslave those who fight against him. Well, with quick work and a quick thought and help from an old friend, Klide has successfully dealt with at least one of these strange spies. Unfortunately, that is all the time we have. Until next time, you friends, may the dice gods bless your every roll.
We here at What the Dice would like to thank Paizo for creating Pathfinder, Epidemic Sound for our music, as well as Sirenscape for our sound effects. If you would like to reach out to us, you can do so on Facebook at What the Dice Pod, Twitter at What the Dice Pod, and of course email whatthedicepod@gmail.com. And if you liked our little adventure, please share us with your friends and rate and review us.